Heading on down to the feature match area, we are underway. Victor Hawkins on Demir Midrange versus Nicholas Odenheimer on Gruul Aggro. Here we go, and Gruul Aggro's playing a one-drop.
Yeah, but the big sigh of relief from Victor is the fact
No
that
ley
Nicholas
line.
didn't have that turn 0 ley line. So suddenly you are playing a significantly more fair game than you would be otherwise.
Heartfire Hero in play for Nicholas as the turn gets passed back over to him. No play yet from Victor. Land drop on the turn here for Nicholas. And there is a Drowner of the Flood Pits Flood Pits Drowner gonna flash in and tap down that Heartfire Hero.
Yeah, the fact that you can use a curve of Flood Pits Drowner into Feybloom Trick to really slow things down has been a strong selling point for this Dimir midrange deck, but one thing that you're not really used to facing when you're playing the typical Gruul aggro builds is they don't really have a way to protect their creatures like you do in this version with Snakeskin Veil and Overprotect.
Yeah. Oh, check this out. That Flood Pits Drowner is going back to hand. Guess what? It was Kaido, Bane of Nightmares all along.
All along, and if Victor is at 15, typically without a ley line, you're not overly worried about dying from this position. But if Nicholas has access to one of the 2 copies of Callous Sellsword that he plays in his deck, it would be possible, though unlikely, to win the game here.
All right, there's an Emberheart Challenger coming in for the beats as well for Nicholas Odenheimer. It looks like a cast down on that Emberheart Challenger. Going to take care of it there for Victor. Victor Hawkins at 15 to Nicholas Odenheimer's 17.
There's the second Sun counter, leaving the Heartfire Hero. Those were from Kaido, so bought a lot of time for Victor Hawkins, especially by having the cut down for the Emberheart Challenger. And this is Nicholas setting up for those kill turns that this leyline version of Gruul likes to go for. He's plotting the Slickshot Show-Off rather than just playing it as a creature, trying to set up so he could have multiple creatures to win with. But another copy of Flood Pits Drowner, the stun counters are really annoying here from Victor Hawkins' side of things.
That's right, and it lets the Flood Pits Drowner get in there, knocking Nicholas down to 15 as well. But I gotta tell you, Monty, those slick shot show-offs, when they are plotted, are one of the scariest things across the table from you, humanly imaginable.
Yeah, absolutely. I think right now Victor is feeling okay because of the fact that Nicholas is a little starved on mana and has no ley line or multiple threats on the board. But if Victor can't keep this up, the pace at which he's attacking the life total is not that high, which means Nicholas will have enough time to set up for that explosive turn.
There we can see a plotted marker there for our slick shot show off. And we've got Flash Fairy coming in end of turn for Victor. So Victor's the one putting creatures on the board here.
Yeah, the damage is adding up, and once again, Nicholas just passed because he doesn't want to put that show-off on the board until it's time to mount that GG turn if possible.
All right, we're on an adventure as well here for Nicholas Odenheimer, taking a look at the top of the deck. Lands!
Lands not bad here. Seek the Beast. Going to find a pair of lands, and that means that Nicholas will be able to potentially have access to multiple tricks here between 2 creatures and that show-off. One blocker for Victor means that if Nicholas has the right combination of spells, this could be a very explosive turn.
Mountain goes into play for Nicholas. We'll see if we can see some fireworks here. Victor's still at a fairly healthy 15, but that can get knocked down pretty quick with the right combination of cards. Slick shot show-off coming off of plot. Wow, what a tongue twister that was.
Got through it. And I believe we're going to combat, so this is the first moment of interaction for Victor. Do you have something like that Feybloom trick to try to slow things down in the spot?
I remember when the tech of Feybloom trick was on just being discovered, and it felt like, hey, this now is something that we can use to actually put Gruul in its place. The play is actually going to be a Flood Pits Drowner, though, putting some more stun counters on the table. In comes a Heartfire Hero. finally unstunned for like the first time this game.
It's been stunned for so long between 3 copies of Floodpit's Drowner as well as Kaido. So much time has been bought for Victor to try to assemble this board state and this aggressive force that he has going for him.
Monstrous Rage here from Nicholas.
And right now, with that and the trigger from the Heartfire Hero on the stack, I believe Victor is saying, I'm just going to think, would like to decide whether he's going to try to kill this Heartfire Hero here before it grows and then potentially deals more damage. And if Nicholas has a protection spell here, knowing all the shields are down, that could be a massive swing.
There's a go for the throat from Victor Hawkins.
Has Nicholas done the math? And does Nicholas know whether this is lethal? A Callous Sellsword would all but do it, I believe.
Wow. Incredible. The go for the throat is good. Takes out the Heartfire Hero.
That's massive.
That's
if you're
huge.
in Victor's seat.
Yes, absolutely. Turning the tide here, potentially. Questing Druid's just the follow-up play from Nicholas. Victor still sitting at 13.
And Victor, knowing that show-off is stunned for another turn because it was tapped during that combat step, means that he has the go-ahead to just get really aggressive, and that's half of Nicholas's life gone in this attack. So Victor can win as easily as next turn.
Holy cow, go for the throat, takes out Questing Druid, enabling this attack here from Victor. In with the Drowners, in with the Fairy Mastermind. Down to 5 goes Nicholas.
It is so impressive how much time this Dimir midrange can earn for itself just using stun counters.
Absolutely. This Floodpit's Drowner has been an all-star in this game. Back over to Nicholas now. Are we able to put something together? Tapping out some math on the table. Monstrous Rage on this slick shot.
I'm guessing that this is Nicholas trying to put together a win without an attack using Burn Together, which is the adventure of Callous Sellsword.
Okay, there's Turn Inside Out on top of it, and there is Burn Together.
But the counter spell, the spell stutter, I believe, available from Victor means that Nicholas, despite the Hail Mary attempt, was not able to get the job done.
Wow, that was incredible. What a clutch counter there coming in for Victor Hawkins, taking the game over Nicholas Odenheimer, who maybe had that kill with that Burn Together off the Callous Sellsword, which is certainly the reason to play this specific build of Gruul aggro that I don't think I've seen as much around lately, Monty.
No, it's one that has fallen out of favor quite a bit in recent months, but showing why, especially this deep into the tournament, it can still be a massive threat. The fact that Victor had that much interaction, had that much stun, and was able to buy that much time and still was in a position where he could lose the game there without any attack coming through from 13 really speaks to the potential power of this Gruul deck.
Absolutely. Taking a look at the sideboards here for the players. Let's check out Nicholas's sideboard. What are you interested in here, Monty?
Well, if you're on Nicholas's side of things, you really want to try to play in a way that makes your opponent's removal worse. So potentially something like a Paw Patch Recruit, allowing you multiple threats in one card with the Offspring, as well as getting counters to spread around if your opponent is targeting your things with all of these stun counters, can be a good way to go. But other than that, one of the big issues that this version of Gruul aggro has is you can't dilute your deck too much. You always have to be careful, because if you cut too many pump spells or too many creatures, suddenly your ley line and game plan becomes a lot worse. So Nicholas has to be very careful about how he's leveraging his cuts, the few that he has available to him.
Your deck's still got to do the thing, especially in a deck like Gruul aggro, where the thing is the most important thing you can be doing. Let's check out things on the other side of the table here. Sideboarding for Victor Hawkins. What do we have there as far as treats go?
I think for Victor, you are looking at removal and trying to buy more time in cheap ways if possible. Shieldred is extremely strong against these aggressive decks, but you do have to keep in mind against this version of Gruul aggro, tapping out for a 4-mana card may just spell death. So Victor has to be considering that, and maybe it is too expensive against the leyline version of this deck where you really need to have removal spells. But I would say that all the removal spells in the sideboard have have to be coming in here because you need to make sure that you have at least one, ideally two removal spells at any given point for those go-off turns.
Oh, so scary. All right, everybody. Speaking of scary, Innistrad Remastered. You can pre-order it now. Rise from the grave and relive all the horrors Innistrad has to offer. Visit starcitygames.com/mtg/Innistrad-remastered and pre-order your Innistrad Remastered singles and sealed products today. Are you scared? Are you spooked, Monty?
Not by Innistrad, but, you know, I am by the cold outside.
What about a slick shot show-off?
I'm only scared of being able to pronounce it correctly.
I'm being very careful. It is terrifying, though. You're right.
It's tough.
New Edgar with Innistrad Remastered looks beautiful in that new showcase frame they have for him. So I'm excited about that. Players here counting their decks and shuffling up for game number 2. Victor Hawkins game up over Nicholas Odenheimer. But Nicholas will now be on the play, certainly a place you want to be when you are playing a very, very aggressive Gruul aggro deck.
Yeah, and ultimately, you really don't want to see, if you're in Victor's seat, that ley line on the other side of the board.
Yeah, absolutely not. I have a question for you, though. This Gruul aggro version that Nicholas is running this weekend, do you like it better right now in this metagame that we found this weekend than the more traditional, that has come to be the more traditional Gruul aggro list?
I personally am a big fan of consistency, and this Gruul aggro version has always struggled with that. We saw this going back to the World Championship where Jean-Emmanuel Duprat thought that Leyline of Resonance was completely broken. Why would anyone not play it? He started off with an excellent start in the World Championship, and then as things went on, he started losing not to anything but his own deck. And I think that is something that we see a lot from this deck, is it has the raw power, it is incredibly explosive, but the fact that you create a higher fail rate for yourself than playing a more consistent deck is one that always scares me, and that's why I tend to shy away from it.
So it's more risk, but potentially more reward?
Exactly.
Okay.
If you're willing to accept that risk, then absolutely it is a very powerful weapon.
The players in the feature match area smiling, laughing, having a good time, which is very nice to see because the stakes are very, very high here. This is the final round of Swiss before we cut to our top 8. And everybody who makes it into the top 8, remember, gets an automatic into the next Pro Tour of the year, which is Pro Tour Ether Drift coming up in Chicago in February. We've got 6 players who believe they're locked. They shook hands, Monty, and we believe they're going to be our 6 of our top 8, so we're looking for the final 2.
Yep, and the winner of this match is guaranteed to be one of that 2. So whoever wins here, this is a Pro Tour invite and a chance to play for that $10,000 up top, a chance to play for that standard for a year. So a lot of incredible prizes left to be earned in this tournament, and it all starts with a win here to get that Pro Tour invite locked up.
Players drawing opening hands here for game number 2. And you mentioned standard for a year, Monty. They send you a case of every standard set release.
Yeah, a case of 6 boxes, by the way. Not one booster box.
No,
6 booster boxes for each standard release.
That's awesome. And that's just one of the prizes that you can get at these Spotlight Series events that are happening throughout the year. It's going to be different at each Spotlight, which I think is very, very cool. So that's the prize for this one. You can see the rest of the prizes here. $10,000 for first place. Second, $5,000. Top 64 gets you $350. And remember, we've got a big announcement coming up before our top 8 as to the Spotlight Series themes coming up later this year, which we are very, very excited to share with you very soon. So make sure you don't go anywhere. And we are underway here for game number 2. Spyglass Siren is the play coming along with a map token for Victor Hawkins. Cacophony Scamp was the play for Nicholas Odenheimer here.
And Leyline was not the play for Nicholas Odenheimer once again.
Yeah. Challenger gets into the red zone for Nicholas, hitting for 2. Victor down to 18. Swamp for Victor Hawkins here. Go for the throat on the Challenger. Challenger down. Does the bird stay back? It does.
Absolutely. If Nicholas is showing a reluctance to trade with the Scamp the previous turn, you want to leave the Siren back and make sure that happens again, or Nicholas has to use a pump spell or some form of interaction to break through here.
All right, in comes the Scamp, and that Scamp is mad. Monstrous Rage. takes out the Siren and gets in for damage. Another scamp. Hawkins at 15.
Yeah, and we'll see how Hawkins wants to deal with this board. 2 cards left for Nicholas Odenheimer. Was able to get the Hardfire, the Emberheart Challenger, off the board. So at least no extra value in cards being given to Nicholas Odenheimer here. But as things stand, Victor has to deal with a board that is very much threatening his life total.
2 scamps into the red zone for Nicholas. Another monstrous rage on the second scamp here. Does Victor have a response? I don't know if he does.
All right.
All right, looks like that's good. Victor Hawkins down to 9. It's getting precarious.
Yeah, and Nicholas, I think, has to be thinking about whether, now that he's dealt damage with them, he wants to be sacrificing either of these scamps.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Cacophony Scamp, does have a line of text. When it deals combat damage, you may sacrifice it if you do proliferate. And when it dies, it deals damage equal to its power to any target.
Right.
So currently you have a 4-power Scamp on one side, a 2-power Scamp, and you could be sacrificing these for some extra damage, but that is giving up your creatures, and the question is, hey, what are you going to do with it?
Sacrifice them, sacrifice them. No fear. Oh, Tashana's Tidebinder, though, for Victor.
I believe that was just on the end step.
All right.
So after Nicholas decided not to sacrifice either, then no trigger is being countered there. But
Sad.
I think Victor was ready to try to sacrifice, counter a sacrifice trigger if Nicholas went for it.
So just the 3/2 flasher for Victor Hawkins. Sitting at 920 life still for Nicholas. Feeling fine up there. Soulstone Sanctuary, the land.
That's a map token being sacrificed. Does hit another land. Not exactly ideal. You would have liked to get a counter on that Tidebinder if possible.
All right, we're going to see a Spyglass Siren bringing the map token right on back. And that's a pass. Back over to Nicholas. Ball now in the court of the Gruul aggro player.
All right, I have seen Nicholas's hand. I believe it is land, turn inside out, and a copy of Callous Sellsword.
Oh
so
my
burn
gosh.
together available. And that means a few different ways to try to put together a win here.
Combat. Both scamps attack. Getting blocked by 1 Tidebinder.
4 damage getting through, 2 from combat, 2 from the scamp being sacrificed there.
Victor at 5. Back over to Victor Hawkins. Up against it here. As you mentioned, we do have some tools in the hand of Nicholas Odenheimer to close things out potentially.
And one of the things that is a problem right now for Victor is if he goes for a removal spell on the scamp and Nicholas just pumps it in response with turn inside out, that would be 5 damage. So Nicholas is in a position where he needs 2 potential removal spells, and this block is not going to get the job done here.
No, he's just animating that Soulstone. Now just figuring out what he wants to put in front. It's both of them, but there's turn inside out, and
Victor just doing the math, but it is very much lethal when the scamp dies, and I believe that is the second game going to Nicholas Odenheimer, getting it done without a ley line. Yet to see whether he's boarded out those ley lines potentially. I do know that there was a school of thought before that you actually only played ley line the majority of the time in the first game and then boarded out of it for additional tools, just because the way you have to sideboard typically means that you have to shave on something, and whatever you shave is going to make your ley line plan too vulnerable. So a lot of times there were players that believed that you cut ley line in a large majority of matchups in the post-board games. So curious whether that is something that Nicholas has gone down. Of course, this version of the deck is not one that I've paid too much attention to in the past few months. So we'll see whether Nicholas is considering something like that as we go into the third game, or maybe we will finally see a turn 0 ley line to really put the fear in Victor.
My God, a turn 0 ley line, horrifying if you are in Victor's seat. Both players currently have a game to their name here in this match. This is a win and in for our top 8. A lot on the line for both of these players here this weekend. So it was an open tournament, so anybody could just show up and play. Both of these players done very, very well for themselves to find themselves in this position here in the final round of Swiss before our cut to the top 8. Nearly 1,500 people were here on day 1 of competition. 337 came back for day number 2 with a 6-3 record or better. And here we are, final round of Swiss. Taking a look now at the metagame for day number 2 of competition, you can see both of our decks here were the most played decks, Dimir Midrange and Gruul Aggro, and had conversion rates that you would expect here coming into day number 2.
Yeah, they definitely remained the top 2 decks from day 1 to day 2. I wouldn't say overperformed, just because as the most played decks, you were expecting to see a large chunk of them in day 2. But they performed exactly as expected, and they have really been this consistent. I will say Gruul does already have 3 copies in the top 8.
That's
so
true.
in terms of which deck has looked really impressive going deeper into day 2, it is Gruul that is ultimately rising to the top.
Esper Pixie did very well on its day 2 conversion rate, but we might not see any copies in the top 8.
Yeah, I believe
we have one chance.
A few different things need to go right for Esper Pixie to make it into our top 8.
Interesting. Definitely the new deck of the weekend, and a lot of us were saying, hey, we want to see how it does at this tournament, if it's going to have any staying power whatsoever, or if it was more of a flash in the pan. Moving forward, Monty, if this event were to happen next weekend, what would you be most interested in playing?
In terms of what is the right call, I think that mono white tokens has looked really impressive to me, especially if Gruul continues to be this prevalent. So that would be what I would be looking at. However, in terms of what my heart would want to play, is still domain control.
Yeah,
I love this deck.
Yeah, I love domain control too. And we have a chance for that to be in our top 8 as well, which is kind of exciting. It's a deck I played the most of leading up to this tournament. You just get to draw so many cards.
You do get to draw so many cards, and, you know, that's always what I dream of, is drawing 25 cards or so.
And I'm a player who likes to attack, so it's very strange that I ended up liking this deck. But I think, hey man, Overlord of the Mistmoors gives us both what we want.
Yeah, Maria, at some point you just have to embrace the dark side, you know?
It is the dark side of Magic. You're right about that. Players here shuffling up for game number 3, the deciding game in this match here in round number 15.
All right, Victor is on the play here. So can he have a nice draw? The answer is no.
Oof. Victor here taking a mulligan. Nicholas still looks like he's deciding, but that face did not look like somebody who is happy with their 7.
Yeah, Nicholas looks pained at the moment.
I'm so curious. I wonder what the decision is.
Yeah, especially when you see your opponent mulliganing. It looks like Nicholas is keeping.
All
so
right.
Hopefully not something that he ends up regretting.
Yeah, it looked like a painful decision there for Nicholas. In terms of mulliganing in this standard environment, do you have to be pretty aggressive about it across the board?
I think it really depends on what deck you're on and what matchup you're in. If you're in Victor's seat, facing a deck like this Leyline Gruul Aggro, you have to mulligan to a hand that has at least 1, ideally 2 pieces of interaction, because otherwise you could just very easily die. It's not a luxury that you have in your repertoire to be able to just sit back and keep any old hand just because it has some creatures, for example.
Right.
Nicholas, well, he has a bit more luxury considering so many of his cards do the same thing. As long as he has some creatures and some lands to cast them, he could entertain keeping it and hope that the rest of the cards will come off the top.
And we are underway for game number 3. We're going to kick things off with a Spyglass Siren for Victor Hawkins. So it looks like both players have a turn 1 play Cacophony Scamp for Nicholas.
The Scamp, just such an annoying card in this deck, just continually presenting a terrifying amount of threats. And Victor, if he's swapping this map token right now. If he doesn't have a
Oh
land,
my
well, if
god.
he didn't have a land, he wouldn't be keeping that on top. So,
Yeah. Ooh, you scared me there for a minute, Monty.
yeah,
Cut down is going to deal
that
with the scam.
map token is used, by the way. We should be getting that out of the way.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he left the Drowner on top.
He did. Floodpit Drowner, excellent card in this matchup, and also makes me believe that Victor isn't exactly hurting for lands if he is happily keeping that on top.
Slick shot show off plotted here for Nicholas. Back over to Victor. Looks like another Spyglass Siren and another map token. Getting in there for 2. Nicholas at 16.
Being able to leave up that Floodpit Drowner means that if Nicholas tries to go for something with this show off here, Victor at least has one piece of interaction and a blocker.
All right, here comes the show off of plot. And here comes the Drowner to lock it on down.
Nicholas says combat, Victor says no, and that's a Snakeskin Veil, so
Woohoo!
protected from the tap at least.
Okay. Snakeskin Veil coming on in to give our show off hexproof.
Is there Monstrous Rage? No.
Okay,
So
so
no damage being put through here.
we're fine there. The Siren jumps in front of the show off. Heartfire Hero, the follow-up play from Nicholas, which is basically another kind of cacophony scam.
Yeah, these creatures that deal damage equal to their power when they die are amplified in terms of how terrifying they are in this specific leyline version of Gruul Aggro.
Map token activate, find a land. Yeah, they're bad if they are alive and bad if they die.
Yeah, typically not that many exile effects running around in Standard right now, so you don't often see them not get that value of dealing the damage.
How about another Siren? That's Siren number 3 for Victor Hawkins.
Yeah, Siren is a cool card in this matchup just because it allows you to have a flying chump blocker and potentially get some value out of these map tokens.
Right.
But it doesn't really line up the best in stats.
Victor's getting in there, though, attacking with 1/2/2 Siren, as well as a Floodpits Drowner. Heartfire Hero in front of the Drowner is going to trade off there, leaving some damage in its wake. Victor Hawkins on 17.
Yeah, very curious if there is something like a cut down available here to Victor. Already used one, of course.
Yes. In comes the show-off. Siren in front. Victor's like, it's going to die, right?
Yep. It has a counter
It's
on
a
it
counter
from
the
Snakeskin
Snakeskin
Veil.
Veil.
And Victor thought that he was...
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunate misstep here from Victor because I believe combat damage has resolved here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, he's taking back the block. Okay.
All right.
All right. Hey, man, we played 15 rounds. You know what I mean?
It's been a long, grueling weekend.
Very nice, Monty.
Very, very, very nice. Thank you. Patting myself on the back here.
Emberheart Challenger from Nicholas and a pass.
All right, what does Victor have? Only 2 cards considering he did mulligan this game and was on the play, so not that many resources to work with. Is this a Kaido? It's
Ooh, Shieldred. Okay, nice find here for Victor. Hawkins might help him stabilize.
Yeah, this is a really scary spot from Victor just because if Nicholas is able to put together the win here, he has nothing left. However, if he can untap with Shieldred, the game is in a much better position for him. So I'm curious to see how punished Victor gets for the sequence. And this is the big risk in bringing Shieldred in this matchup. But you can just get so absolutely heavily rewarded for it if things go right.
Okay, let's see what happens. Nicholas doing what Gruul do. Creatures go vroom into the red zone. Lining up blocks here from Victor. Both Spyglass Sirens in front of the Slick Shot show-off.
Yeah, Nicholas checking, is the Emberheart Challenger blocked?
Victor says no. Monstrous Rage on the Emberheart Challenger, revealing
Second
another Monstrous Rage! Oh my god! And of course,
Nicholas suddenly
we're
moving
gonna
a lot
cast it.
faster.
We're gonna cast it
Yep.
on the slick shot show off, counting up the counters with these die. Oh, what a hit!
And this is
Oh, we're not done. Turn
no,
inside out.
I think we're done, just not in the way that you want it to be.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Holy cow! This Gruul deck showing just exactly how much damage it can get through out of almost nowhere, and you were right to be terrified. I was like, we have a Shieldred, we're fine, and you're like, I don't know, Maria.
Yeah, so those dice underneath are currently representing the invisible damage, invisible stats that have been added. We have 3 from the turn inside out, 2 from the Monstrous Rage, and then 3 from the Emberheart Challenger triggers. Then for the Slick Shot Show Off, we have 2 from the Monstrous Rage and 3 from 3 spell triggers.
Holy cow.
I think Victor just taking a moment here. I'm not exactly sure why he stepped away. Right.
Yeah, he's speaking to a judge off the table, so he's going to take a moment here and talk to the judge and find out whatever, get his question answered that he wants to get answered. Judges are here to help us out in these kinds of moments.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot riding on the result of this match. As you said, Monty, this is a win and in for our top 8. Top 8 players all get a spot to our next Pro Tour, which is happening in February in Chicago. Pro Tour Ether Drift. I'm looking forward to that set. Looks very, very cool. Of course, you can pre-order it now as well on Star City Games if you are interested. But this is our final round of Swiss, everybody. It's the last round before our cut to the top 8. And it's already shaping up to be a very exciting top 8, too.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what this top 8 will yield.
All right, let's head back on down to our feature match area. Our judge call is over. And it looks like Victor is explaining something to Nicholas. Those headsets the players are wearing are not mic'd, by the way. Those are so they don't hear us over here in coverage because they are next door to us.
Yeah, they are pretty close. Right. So here's a scenario that they do have to be considering. Victor can offer a draw here to Nicholas. However, it's tough because this is legal at any point, but Nicholas is winning the match here.
Right.
And
so why would you take that?
I honestly, you won't most of the time. There are judges sitting there, so everything is, of course, above board. Victor will not say, hopefully, anything that gets him in trouble. However, for Nicholas, this is a situation where by taking a draw, he is essentially costing himself seeding in the top 8 should he make it there.
Right.
And
taking
what is a definitive position, especially as this Gruul aggro deck, it is very important. And he's taking what is a definitive position and making it a risky one.
Wowza. I guess Victor's like, look, I gotta ask. I mean, gamer's gonna game here.
Absolutely. It's free to ask. However, in Nicholas's position, I think it is very not free to take it.
Yeah, man.
And we're not going to speculate. We're going to let this resolve in its natural course.
Once again, stepping away from the table is Victor Hawkins to talk to a judge. Like we said, we want everything to be above board here, and there are very strict rules about how you have to go about this. At one of these tournaments, we are playing competitive REL here, which is the highest rules enforcement level. So we've got to keep that in mind as well, and we are very grateful for our judges in the feature match area, which have been helping us out all weekend. Let's head on back down to the table, see what we have resolved. Discussion still ongoing between these two players here. Waiting to see what they decide. Nicholas here with the win, and there is the handshake. We'll wait to hear from our spotters down there in the feature match area. Nicholas Odenheimer takes the match. All right.